I'm not under indictment anymore, and I've been released, and I'm a free man. Late spring, early summer of 21 comes around, and they start talking about like college kids needing a vaccine to go to school. There's no way that we are going to get a vaccine, if it's even a vaccine, in 9 months when we've been trying to get something for AIDS over 40 years, and we're trying to get a vaccine for cancer for 100 years. And we're going to get something, for the common cold virus that's probably been around longer than humanity has, to work in 9 months with a novel technology that killed all the animals in all of the 5 studies that I knew about. And just, it's just all kinds of things just didn't make any sense to me.
The so-called intellectual, what do we call them? The cognitive disciplines fell right in line. I mean, just fell right in line. And I thought, wow, it's right. The surgeons aren't as used to being sheep as we are, because we have been so beaten down for so long by, these clinical pathways and insurance companies. We're not allowed to make a decision on anything anymore. You guys, when you're in a surgical field, you're making the decisions. They can't intrude on that. And so you're able to still make decisions. And it was intriguing to me that you were the guys that kept speaking up.
The plastic surgeons that I know, most of them were, to some degree against it. I mean, obviously, we're not controlled by insurance, the cosmetic side of it. So we don't have people telling us, when to operate and when not to operate, and, what your capitation is, how many patients you have to see, any number of those things. We're not employed. But even then, Drew, it was amazing to me the number of people that still fell in line, still kind of bought the, bought the narrative. It just didn't make any sense to me. When you really sit back and you look at the narrative and you listen to it, and you're kind of sitting here, that the whole thing was based on fear and fear alone. Wearing a mask to prevent a virus is kind of like putting up a chain link fence to keep the mosquitoes out of your yard. Really doesn't make any sense to me how you can throw things out the window as far as just common sense, medicine that we grew up being taught. And, kind of like taking care of the patient first and dealing with the ethics and dealing with the morals, and not letting, your decision be decided by, somebody else out of the room, or some insurance company or some administrator or something somewhere else.
I don't know if you were trained during the AIDS pandemic, but I was deep in that thing. And that, that's an illness that had not a 1% fatality rate, a 100% fatality rate at the time. And we didn't wear masks. We didn't even glove up when we were dealing with the patients. It was like, what if we were so, oh my God, AIDS patient, oh, she's, so scary. When they had TB and they had pneumocystis, and they had all kinds of stuff. And then coccidia, and guess what? We marched on in to do our job. And we never gave it a second thought, with a 100% fatality rate. And here's one with a 1% fatality rate, and people are cowering in the corner. It was the most bizarre thing if you went through that pandemic.
We, as physicians and scientists, the goal of a vaccine, and the goal of anything, especially vaccines, is to mimic natural immunity, correct? I mean, we are trying to give somebody a portion of a disease that way it prevents them from getting it, and doesn't get. But natural immunity is the gold standard, right? So,
of course,
these people here that had already gotten infected in 2020.
Sasha Latypova. You can follow Sasha on X at Sasha_Latypova, LATYPOVA, and SashaLatypova.substack.com. If you want a little science and art, it's both on her Substack. Sasha, welcome back.
Hi, Dr. Drew. Thank you for inviting me.
So am I right that you want to throw in a little art into the scientific endeavor with your paintings?
Well, they are unrelated. Art is my passion, really, and something that I wanted to do instead of this. I love talking to you, but I didn't want to be a media personality. I wanted to be an artist.
What I don't understand, what I don't understand is how you have the time to write those scorching Substacks and paint. That's the part forget the fact that I like your paintings, but that you can do both is like, to me, like that's a thing.
I also mountain bike and ski. So
Physical and mental horsepower. All right, so let's just start with Operation Warp Speed and what Donald Trump seemed to be signaling on that social media post, which I know a lot of people were sort of relieved to see, and a lot of people were. I'm not sure everyone really understood what he was saying, and you're my go-to. So what is it he's expecting? What is being hidden? What was he being told, and what should he be told?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so before I address this tweet specifically, I think I need to set the context. And actually, I'm glad that you used a clip from Dr. Kirk Moore. And this is very relevant. Dr. Moore is one of my subscribers, and I've talked to him for several years now and assisted in his legal fight with my materials. And he's one of the few people, his case is one of the few people who actually took these materials and used them very effectively. And I can say that it was instrumental to getting his case dismissed. In his court hearing, which lasted for a whole week before Pam Bondi dropped it, the information started coming out that U.S. government cannot afford to disclose. And this goes for both administrations, for Trump, because it was started under Trump, and Biden, and Trump again. So specifically in the court testimony on Thursday of that week, two people were testifying on behalf of the state, on behalf of prosecution of Dr. Moore, Chris Duggar, from ex-CDC staffer, high level, and Gary Disbrow from BARDA, Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, who are responsible for countermeasures, which are all of these mRNA shots are countermeasures. And Trump administration can't bring themselves up to even mention this word. And this word is heavily, heavily censored. And this is the information they can't afford to disclose. So what was disclosed through the testimony of Duggar and Disbrow, and I published on this, is that, first of all, chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear weapons pathways were used to push mRNA, so-called vaccines, they're not vaccines, on the market. COVID response overall is an ongoing military campaign, ongoing. It has not stopped. We still have COVID emergency. PrEP Act declaration is extended until end of 2029. So we're still under the same CBRN military campaign powers. Healthcare system overall was used as unknowing army of foot soldiers to implement deliberately harmful HHS protocols, both hospital murders and then, of course, these hugely poisonous mRNA shots, countermeasures. And since these two persons just started testifying, they brought up a very, very dangerous testimony for the US government. On Friday, a state attorney called them back and tried to get them to recant or change their language. That didn't go quite well, but the genie is already out of the bottle. And so on Saturday, Pam Bondi dropped the case. Now, Trump is tweeting that he needs to see Pfizer data somehow to figure out whether this Operation Warp Speed was as brilliant as he thought or not. I don't understand what data he needs to see, because Pfizer, as you know, has been FOIA'd many, many times. The Pfizer data started coming out and being published since 2021. I was extensively publishing on it. Numerous authors have published on it. Naomi Wolf wrote the whole book of Pfizer papers. Everybody read it. There's extensive analysis available of that data. It's definitively 100% known that these shots are extremely toxic. They don't produce any efficacy. They have negative efficacy, meaning that they're designed to produce the disease they're alleged to prevent, and so forth. So I don't understand, why is Trump banned from the internet? How come every layperson who wanted to know what's going on figured out very quickly, and he can't? And so now, of course, the propaganda messaging is he was lied to. Oh my God, breaking news. Trump was lied to by Fauci and Birx and whoever. And 5D Chess Grossmeister cannot possibly figure it out, and now he needs again to see Pfizer data. So that's my point. Why is he talking about this? What are they doing? Well, remains to be seen. But I put out a tweet comparing this to the Epstein file fiasco, and I am very, very worried that this is going in the same direction.
Or is he setting up this split so he doesn't have the blush of responsibility for the warp speed debacle, so to speak? In other words, he's setting himself up as, wait, I was lied to. These are the guys that did it. Let me see this data now. Whether he's seen it or not, he's just sort of setting up that best case scenario for his government. Why is nobody except you, it seems like, talking about PrEP Act and BARDA?
Well, that's a good question. As I said, disinformation is kryptonite to this whole campaign. As you can see, that led Pam Bondi dropping the case. But nothing somehow leads Pam Bondi to recognize that, for example, Brooke Jackson has been fighting to bring out the case against Pfizer and their fraud, which we all know, they have committed fraud. But somehow, you see the difference, right? When it's threatening them that the public will realize what's going on with this military campaign, they drop the case. Otherwise, they're just pretending nothing is happening. And so that's my main criticism of Trump, of MAHA, of current administration, is this staunch denial of the obvious. And anybody can go look up the existing PrEP Act declarations. Anybody can go look up the PrEP Act law and what it is about. It's a license to kill, and it strips us of our constitutionally protected rights. It violates Constitution in numerous ways. And the only person in Congress who is talking about it is Thomas Massie, and nobody else even. So he actually started a process to repeal PrEP Act, although I'm sure it's not going to go anywhere. But at least he acknowledged that this is the problem.
What was it that was said on the stand that was so threatening to the government? So
I can give you some quotes. Specifically, Duggar and Disbrow testified that this is a quote from. So first of all, the distribution plan, the development was Department of Defense operation. Department of Defense and Palantir, which is Peter Thiel's company, the big brother that they're building, the totalitarian surveillance company, they had their own staff, on the manufacturing floor of all 6 Operation Warp Speed companies. And I also separately can corroborate this because I've been talking to an insider at Moderna and their Boston facility, and he confirmed this. They had a classified DARPA office inside Moderna, only accessible to DARPA personnel and those with special clearance. Then Disbrow also testified that they compared people who refused vaccines and also doctors who did not follow HHS orders as military combatants. And that's why Dr. Kirk Moore was so zealously prosecuted for writing vaccine cards to people who wanted them. And he was facing 35 years in jail, by the way. And the prosecution went for years. He spent about $1 million defending himself. It went through a whole week of trial. Why? Because he was treated as a military combatant under this law, under this PrEP Act, Countermeasures Military Campaign Law. And so are all of us who refused vaccines. They also testified that they did not, that their military campaign, when they meet with the enemy, that's specific words were used. When they encounter the enemy, their plans go out of the window typically. And they also confirmed that they did not expect a 25% refusal rate. And that was one of the kind of obstacles to their plans. All kinds of military language. They compared, by the way, vaccines and everything else that they purchased under these defense production contracts to bullets and military supplies. Those are specific words that they said in court. It's all available in transcript now. And I highly encourage every journalist who thinks of themselves as investigative journalists on these matters to look it up, obtain that transcript and read it.
You said something about the vaccine that I have trouble believing, that it was designed to harm people like bullets. Explain that to me. Why would the organization charged with protecting the population want to harm the population?
Well, so they need to testify to that. I can't get into their heads, but I can give you circumstantial evidence on which I also published. One of the people I follow on X, Jessica Rojas, published the document that she FOIA'd from the United States government, which is their financial projections for the next 75 years. And one of the pages that she had to fight to get extra hard was financial sensitivity analysis, which is 3 scenarios, high, medium, low, and varying those assumptions and see what U.S. government budget looks like. And under all scenarios, they have massive shortfall, and it shows definitively that even if we have a growing population, high fertility rate, and young population, replacing older ones, which would seemingly say, well, that's a good thing. They can pay to the Social Security and then Social Security won't collapse. That still doesn't work. The US government still has a massive shortfall. Why? That's exactly because the assumptions about economic theories telling you that younger population is better are all based on the fact that young population is healthy. In reality, our young population is, first of all, born unhealthy because mothers get vaccinated more and more and more. And then they're made further unhealthy by about 70 shots that CDC prescribes to every baby. And most of the states zealously enforce on all school-aged children. It's reached ridiculous proportions. That's why we have 75% of the population chronically ill and over 50% of children chronically ill from early on. In this scenario, the younger population never becomes productive. They never become productive contributors to Social Security. They go straight on the government dole. And that's why, under any projection, U.S. government sees the shortfall. Why they refuse to stop vaccinations is because U.S. government doesn't work for the people. It works for the corporations. As you've noticed, Peter Thiel and Susie Wiles pretty much control the U.S. government. Why? Because pharma companies and tech bros fund the administration of political campaigns. So that's why. So they are codependent on this massive poisoning of people with vaccines and then harvesting what transpires because they seed diseases with vaccines and then they harvest those diseases over people's shortened now lifespan. That's, in a nutshell, what's going on. And that's why this last iteration with these mRNA shots is just basically the next cycle of the same drama.
I can't go, I know better than to take you head on because you do your research, but it's hard for me to go where you've gone. I'm watching carefully for the evidence, and I hear you, and you've certainly been spot on the prep back in DARPA, which was the first person I'd heard that about. Yeah, I know, I hear you, but I'm slow. Ask Naomi Wolf. She's always on my case. It does want me to, it'll lead me to sort of talk about some other topics though, because of your pharma background. Explain to me why we give the hepatitis B vaccine to newborns.
Oh, yeah, that's a great question. It's a great question. It just confirms what I just said. And I encourage you, I mean, I understand it's very hard to catch up for busy people with the barrage of information. We have to drink from a fire hose right now. But it's exactly the same thing. So they need to see the disease to make those children sick so that they can harvest them through the healthcare system that they control and profit from. And then those profits drive the stock prices, and the capital gains fund political campaigns. So that's the cycle. That's the vicious cycle.
Is there any way that construct that you're seeing? The way you describe it, it sounds premeditated, and that's what I'm really struggling with. But is there a way in which it is sort of just the way things have evolved? And so having difficulty undoing because of the motivational financial benefits?
Well, of course, they evolved. Most of the participants, as I said, are unknowing participants. It's an army of foot soldiers, this healthcare system. Most of the people who work at CDC are also unknowing, although, it's obvious that a lot of people like Paul Offit, who just got fired, thank God, are very much, they know what they're doing. Now, this whole strategy of sickening population with vaccines developed for a long, long time. So many people don't realize where the roots are. And it takes digging and digging for years. My colleague, Catherine Watt, has done it. She traced vaccine-related law changes in the United States for 200 years, starting in late 1700s. And it is, when you read her research, which is a lot, but she has compiled very good compilations and summaries for people to get up to speed quickly, it becomes very, very clear that this strategy was there from the start. For example, vaccines are not regulated. None of the vaccines are regulated. Countermeasures is another layer of it, even more, so it's even more removal of liability, even more unregulation. But vaccines have never been regulated as drugs. And I, as a drug development professional, I did not know it. This is how well they hide it. And this is how long back it goes. So I only figured this out after I started looking into it and after I got in touch with Catherine. But vaccines have been unregulated by Virus Toxin Act in 1902. It precedes formation of the FDA by several decades. And FDA was not in charge of vaccines until 1970s. And every time a new drug regulation law came into place, it always explicitly carved out vaccines and referred back to the Virus Toxin Act, which never regulated them. It only said facility will be licensed. It's similar to licensing manufacture of wine or beer, same kind of a licensing of a facility. But the precise recipe of the beer or wine is not regulated because it's not possible. It's an organic, natural material. And in case of vaccines, it's putrid and rotten matter that's collapsing and falling apart and causing disease. And they add metals to it, and they add all kinds of nefarious things to it, and now LNPs. So, as I'm saying, from 1902, the Congress said this is just like a brewery, bottling facility. And then since then, it's always been carved out from drug regulation.
Why do other countries go along with this, if that's so?
Because of money. So the same money and military power. So everyone is basically dependent. The major Western governments are dependent on the central banking and dollar as reserve currency, and U.S. military force and NATO forces and other, Five Eyes and so forth. They're there to enforce the dollar as a reserve currency. And so the governments are all broke. They're all, in debt continuously, and they will just implement whatever they are told to from the central location.
World Health Organization, is my understanding, who recommended the hepatitis B vaccine of day one of life, which made so no sense. I was in and around the development of the Hep B vaccine. My residency director was very involved with it, and we were interested in developing that vaccine for vertical transmission in China, mother-to-child transmission in China, where they had a real problem with it. That's what we were thinking about. And then all of a sudden, the World Health Organization requires it for 1-year-old when there's a zero probability. If the mom had hepatitis B in this country and we didn't know it, all those doctors would go to jail. Forget malpractice, they'd go to jail. Because we test that routinely in anybody at risk. So if a child needs hepatitis B vaccine, we know when the child needs it because the mom has Hep B. Everybody else does not need it. It's people it was designed for healthcare workers and IV drug users, not for one-day-olds. So already, to me, that is the most bizarre thing in the world that we do that. Do you think, and there has been some recent data about this, that is a significant link to the autism problem?
Absolutely. Well, not just the Hep B vaccine, but as you know, now they're getting jabbed with multiple jabs at birth. So vitamin K shot, and all of them contain, as I said, rotting matter, and proteins. Proteins start all the anaphylactic type reactions, which is all food allergies, peanut oil allergy, your shellfish, gluten allergy, chicken, rice, corn, all of that is the proteins in the vaccines. Now, they also Hep B, including K-shot and all these other shots that they give them, all contain various metals. Used to be mercury, was causing very, very severe autism. Now, then they replaced it with aluminum. It also causes autism, maybe not as severe, but still it's causing it. And then other metals that are there and other chemicals that are there, which is ethanol, BPL. Then also they have aborted fetal cells. They have monkey cells. It's a complete disaster from so many factors. So yes, these shots are responsible for autism, 100% responsible for childhood cancer. Children do not have other risk factors. All these other risk factors for cancer, like smoking, drinking, eating bad food, exposure to carcinogenic substances in the environment, they take time to accumulate. A 1-year-old or 2-year-old, no matter even if they ate sugar all their life, they didn't accumulate enough to cause cancer. So all of it is vaccines.
Well, I mean, glioblastomas and retinoblastomas and, their childhood cancers existed before vaccines. They did. But if you're saying that the drop down in the age of vaccine, like colon cancers in young people, that has yet to be explained.
And the early ones, I mean, if they did exist, I've written about it extensively. There are numerous authors, doctors from 1900s, early 2000s. So they all say, who are quoted saying, "I've never seen cancer in children until they started mass vaccinating." Personally, I've never seen cancer in children until I got to the US. I've never seen autism. I didn't know autism even existed until I got to the US in the 90s, and I watched the movie Rain Man. And at that point, I was like, what is it? And so I'm telling you, if you go to third world countries with low vaccination coverage, they still exist. You will see that children eat garbage, they live in terrible conditions, and they're healthy.
Yeah, and it's, I'm worried about throwing the baby out with the bathwater. I mean, I don't want hepatitis B vaccine to be outlawed because there are babies of mothers with hepatitis B who would benefit from the vaccine. And that's generally sort of my feeling is that, medicine, we are, all that pharma research you did, those are dangerous things. Every time we pull out our prescription pad, we are thinking in terms of fighting disabling fatal disease and what risk is worth fighting that fatal or disabling condition, not make life better, which is sort of the weird way we've gotten lately, which is just like everything pharmaceuticals can just make life better or make us live forever. I don't understand what we're even thinking about it, but it is a risk-reward analysis each and every time. And during COVID, that was completely dismantled. And it was so the wildest thing to me that the very one sort of credo that we absolutely cut our teeth on was do no harm, which was a shorthand way of saying make sure the risk is worth the reward.
Yes, exactly. So do no harm is a fundamental principle that the medicine needs to be based on. It's from Hippocratic Oath, which interestingly they don't do in medical schools anymore, and this is also deliberate. And what we've observed in the COVID response, drama, is exactly that. They want to remove ethics and morality from medicine and science, and subjugate medicine and science to their materialistic pursuit of their ends, such as wealth and power, disregarding the cost and the tragedy of human lives lost and massive injuries. And as you've observed for the last 5 years, all administrations, Trump, Biden, Trump, consistently ignore this death toll and injury toll. They ignore the victims, they ignore the injured, they go meet with farmers and do these tours of, holding farmers' hands and asking them what we can do better. But they consistently deny that the injured and dead are the reality. And that's where they're driving the entire healthcare field into this framework where they're calling it gold standard science. But gold standard science talking points conspicuously exclude any Hippocratic Oath principles, Nuremberg Code principles, ethical principles, morality, and all that, because that they're telling you that's their plan. That's where they're going.
there's an epidemiological observation too. I'm going to step away from your DARPA prep observations and just talk about straight, as though they were playing it straight. That as the seriousness of the illness has gone way down, so the need for the vaccine has gone down, so the risk tolerance should be far less. We have had an accumulation of adverse events, and that epidemiology in the face of the reduced risk tolerance has not been, I haven't seen a single study that sort of elucidated that from an epidemiological perspective, because I think you would find that there would be a massive, or maybe there would be sort of two populations. Maybe there'd still be some elderly or at-risk people that would still be worth that risk, but that the accumulated adverse event, again, accumulated, no one has assessed that yet. It's a cumulative effect. Why aren't they, step away from DARPA and prep for a second, why wouldn't they assess that?
That's a great question. I've observed also that they are resistant, very, very resistant to assessing this risk-benefit profile. And again, they need to be asked directly. I've voiced my theory as to why they're doing it. They want to remove the ethical. They want to remove the ethical principles that value individual human life. That's the number one goal of this whole.
Well, stop there. Wait, stop there. I do believe that public health is moving that direction. Maybe it's not DARPA, maybe it's not the military, maybe it's this gigantic public health morass that we've created. Maybe they're the ones pushing things in that direction.
They're very much tied together in the same administration. You will see that, for example, as you were asking me about Jim O'Neill. Well, he's one of the founders of BARDA, which is this military agency, one of the founders of pandemic preparedness. And again, this mentality, I don't want to talk about DARPA too much, but this mentality of, first of all, it's a communitarian mentality. It means that your personal health risk is you're very healthy and you're not facing any of the risk. You're not facing hepatitis B risk, for example. But they will force you to take that to save some theoretical grandma somewhere who's on drugs or something. I don't know.
That's right. Okay. Right? So I see this. I see exactly this. I think you're absolutely correct about it. Where that's coming from, we could argue about, but I see exactly this thing. So my next question always then is, what has the CDC become? Because CDC was originally designed to eliminate malaria in the United States through sort of helping policies around healthcare, advising local. They've always had an advisory function. They just published the morbidity and mortality weekly report. They did some research. They did some epidemiology. Since when is the CDC involved in healthcare? It's through the public health, which is sort of trying to take over healthcare. No?
Absolutely. I could not agree more. First of all, people need to realize that public health is not health. Public health is not health.
Right.
Public health is a statistical exercise, number crunching exercise. And yes, traditionally it was, we collect data from historical events because we can't prospectively call anything pandemic. It's stupid. You can't predict what a virus is going to do. You have to collect data retrospectively only. And that's how they were assessing whether something is an epidemic or a pandemic, but based on historical analysis comparing to previous seasons. And so that was their role, to collect the data accurately, to disseminate it accurately, so that other people can, integrate it into their analysis, research, and thinking. That was all. Now somehow they're given these extraordinary powers to dictate what gets injected into every child. And then you see the theatrics and drama and throwing up, just this Dr. Daskalakis who just departed the CDC. It's whole nother level of evil, and Paul Offit. That's whole another level of evil. So I don't know how they grab those powers when.
Yeah, that's right. This is a self-righteous group who believes, and nothing ever more dangerous than a self-righteous organization doing good for society. That's how social ills get done, always. And this is an example of that. I would urge you to get really focused on this public health thing, because the evidence is everywhere that's what's going on, and every physician feels it. And it's like, what the hell's going on here? What's above that you have to convince people like me over time. But I think you have no trouble convincing people that there's something very, very wrong with this whole notion of public health. And it's all delivered in because we care. You don't care about the kids. You only care about your kids. You don't care about the rest of the community. No, we all care. We all care. But there's a better way to do this. There's a much better way to do this. Oh, exactly. My God.
Yeah.
I mean, what have I been doing for 40 years? Practicing medicine.
I will be writing more about this and researching more about this and collaborating with my colleague Catherine, because she has all the history of what happened with CDC and what laws and how
the history of it is fascinating. I brought this up a few times since the COVID mess, which is like, why did all these people suddenly have masters in public health? Where'd the MPH come from? Why are they doing that? Why do all these people that are neurosurgeons or whatever, they're pathologists, have a masters? But why did they need that? Why did they do that? It's an indoctrination. You've got to dig into what is in that training and what it has done to those people's minds, and what the goal was of people pushing MPHs on practitioners. My suspicion is to get them of a what Lincoln used to call a public mind, to soften them to this idea that they give up the care of their patients and start taking the care of the world, which is just it's irrational. It's not how we do it. Nothing is more efficient than a well-trained, caring patient and a properly motivated, informed patient. Well-trained, caring physician and a motivated, informed patient. That's your best unit. Nothing gets better than that. Everything you put on top of that screws it up. Not that public health shouldn't exist. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that that public health taking over healthcare is not healthcare, as you say. So I think that's the mantra. Okay, well, listen, this has been very interesting, and things are coming into focus for me, Sasha. You'd be happy to know. But I do take my time. The last thing I want to do is sweep into things with any opinion I have. I'm trying to be very circumspect and deliberate and cautious about things. But what's coming up for you? Where do you want people to go to find you, other than to enjoy your art on your Substack?
So I actually want to, I always want to write less about this military stuff, because I've written a lot of things. I want to write more about science and health, and I have written some I started investigating very, very interesting things about especially water, role of proper hydration, proper water, zeta potential, and effect on health. And so those are my kind of stretch goals to try to get rid of that noise, but it keeps coming. And people can find my publications on my Substack, sashalatypova.substack.com. And I publish a couple times a week, on a regular schedule. And also I post on X as well.
The zeta potential stuff is interesting. Give people just a tiny snip of what you're talking about there.
Well, so I've gone through a personal experience of, as I said, I'm a mountain biker and I live at high altitude. I mountain bike between 7,500 feet and 8,500 feet. And I started noticing decline in my performance, which is what I'm 54. Okay, maybe that's normal, whatever. And then I encountered this Zeta 8 stuff. And with the help of, and it's very simple, it's just basically potassium citrate and baking soda in water. But you're doing this protocol, I've been able to get athletic conditioning I've never experienced in my life. I'm better athletically conditioned now than I've ever been.
And so define the zeta potential. So define what that is.
Yeah, so zeta potential is what ensures your stability of colloidal flow. And your blood is colloid. Colloid is a complex mixture, like milk is a classical colloid. It's a mixture of water, lipids, proteins. Blood is 80% water, and the rest of it is blood cells and proteins and other components of the blood. Right. They're all separated by zeta, by negative charge. So that's what's called zeta potential.
Charges, yeah. So it's the charges. I always think of as charges on protein. Am I wrong about that? It's the charges of what's flying around.
On the cells, all the hydrophilic surfaces are aligned with these charges, with these cells with negative charges, and negative separates itself. And so it's like a traffic flow continuously, without collisions, without. So all those, when LNPs enter the bloodstream, for example, one of the effects is because LNPs are positively charged, they strip zeta potential immediately. It's like toaster in a bathtub. And then you see these collisions and you see the blood that becomes like coffee grains. Everyone reported on this, the rouleau effect, thrombosis, clots developing. All of that starts from collapse of zeta potential. But also a whole bunch of things can affect it. And it's a big area of science that people need to pay attention to. And vaccines strip zeta potential and lead to accelerated aging. So all of this leads to accelerated aging. If you want to wind your clock back, your zeta needs to be in a good shape.
Attention to your zeta potential. Okay, well, listen, it's always enlightening to speak with you. Please keep up the good work. And as I said, keep your flaming pen alive and well. And we continue to applaud from the sidelines and try to keep up, frankly. But appreciate it very much. We'll see you soon.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Drew.
I think you're still muted from when you were listening to me and Sasha.
Hello.
There you go.
Here I am.
Hey there.
Thank you. So Can I Say That? Why Free Speech Matters and How to Use It Fearlessly is a book about the mental health benefits of free speech, so that I'm guessing all your listeners probably love free speech already, but at least it gives people a way to answer back if someone tries to say, oh, you have to be quiet because of hate speech and bullying. And it also does have some good techniques for speaking up, as well as for listening well and respectfully during disagreement, since both are important for healthy dialogue.
And you and I were with the Timcast talking about how not speaking up has allowed psychological training to be captured by concerns that are really not related to psychological training.
So true. I mean, groupthink is actually facilitated by people being quiet. It's literally part of the, textbook recipe for groupthink is when people are doing self-censorship, then there creates this illusion of unanimity where, you think you're the only one who thinks the emperor has no clothes. But the more people that are silent, then the crazier, people start getting. So we have to speak up. So I'm glad we're here to do that today.
Yes, it's usually 10 or 20% that speak up. Be a part of it. So let's talk about this young individual that shot up a church. Did you see the video that that person put up? I don't know what this person should be called. I don't know what to he or she. Because in the manifesto, this person is saying that they regret changing gender, and it sounded like they were wanting to switch back. So I don't know what the actual volition would be. Nor do I don't think we should be paying a lot of attention to that, given this person perpetrated such a horrible crime. But I'm wondering if you saw the little video before this all went down.
Yeah, I saw parts of it, but like you, I've really been focused on the outcome of it. A lot of people are saying, that it's wrong or irrelevant to reference the fact that this person was trans. I mean, again, everybody has their own way, I think, of identifying it. But for me, my interest in free speech also just has to do with speaking accurately and precisely. So just my way of describing this person is a trans-identified male, meaning it's a man that identified as trans and, wanted to be perceived as a woman. Although later in life, as you mentioned, even in writings, indicated that perhaps was changing his mind about that as well. So as far as his preferences on what to be called is one thing, as far as what he actually, was another. And when people say that it's irrelevant to even bring that up, I think that's incorrect because first of all, he shot up a Catholic school. And it's a fair point to say, the Catholic Church has ideological differences with trans ideology. And so there would naturally be a friction. I believe that he also actually had, pictures of Jesus with a crosshairs on his face. So to say that there was no, possible component of this person's sexuality that was relevant here, I think is really missing something that even this person himself, wanted us to see. And moreover, when we stop people from speaking openly and clearly and precisely, we stop people from forming social consensus, and we actually interrupt their own thought process. So I'm a big one for just saying it like it is.
The statements in the manifesto were that this person was feeling that he was sad that he'd been brainwashed. He wished he hadn't let himself to be brainwashed, which is a very specific and rather powerful suggestion. It wasn't just, hey, I'm musing, but maybe I made the wrong choice. It's like, no, I was brainwashed. That's sort of an extraordinary statement, number one. Number two, I think it's important to talk about the trans identification because there were physicians treating this person. And my question to those physicians would be, is this person better now? Did you make them better as a result of your treatment? Is this a good outcome? And if it's not a good outcome, what went wrong exactly? Exactly what happened here. You need to do a post-mortem, a morbidity mortality weekly report sort of assessment of what went down with this case and why it turned out so badly. And the fact, what I saw in that video was evidence of full-blown psychopathy. I didn't see psychosis so much, though that could have been embedded in all that. I saw psychopathy. Why did you miss that? Why did you miss that? And why did you treat this person? Why did you leave out the context for the condition you were treating for this individual? Or did you? Did you do some things? We don't know for sure. But this all needs to be answered because my profession, this is not yours, Chloe, mine is missing their fundamental charge, which is to select the right treatment for the right patient. That increases the probability of a good outcome. A correct patient, exactly what patient profile, exactly is going to benefit from exactly what treatment. And we don't seem to be, seems to be we're doing none of that.
No, I would totally agree with you. And you raised an interesting point there about psychosis and psychopathy. So, for your audience, in case they're not sure what that means, psychosis is when we have a break with reality. Psychopathy is when, we essentially numb out to the feelings of others, essentially. So, it kind of like sociopathic, psychopathic, there's a lot of overlap there. What I would actually say, since you also brought up the interesting point about brainwashing, is that it almost, in my view, as a clinical psychologist, is a form of psychosis for a man to believe he is a woman because he grows his hair long and, takes some hormones or whatever. And so I think this person may have, in a sense, been even coming out of a psychosis and, recognizing, hey, I'm just a man with long hair. And in fact, he even said in his manifesto, I feel like I would just shave off or cut my hair. I'm so done with this, but that would be like admitting, that I was wrong about all of this. So to your point as well, Dr. Drew, it's shocking, yet not shocking to me that his, quote, medical team didn't even have like some kind of a protocol in place with him, as I believe they should with all people that go down this medical road, which frankly, I have questions about in the first place, but to at least give them an off-ramp to say, hey, if you ever start to think this isn't for you, here's the normalized way to like get out of it. It seems, and I don't know obviously, but it seems like that wasn't something that he was aware of.
Oh, I'm sure that there's nothing like that being offered. But I'm going to push back a little bit on what you're saying about it being a psychotic. Is if you must not have yet encountered people that were the right patients who got the right treatment, because I know a number of them, and they are. It feels completely aligned. It feels like, oh, this is a condition properly assessed, properly treated. Needs no further discussion.
I don't think that is like psychotics. Just to make it super clear, because thank you, that's an important clarification. If you have a man, like, for example, Jenner, Bruce / Caitlyn Jenner, is fully aware that that he is a man
That's
who
right.
has had a lot of cosmetic adjustments to make himself appear as if he's a woman, and mentally he likes to think of himself that way. But even he has made it clear he would never, try to take on a woman in sports. He knows that's not fair. Again, psychoticism is a break with reality. He knows exactly who he is and what he's doing. I think especially with teenagers, because their perception of reality and their perception of their own identification even is, more fluid. They're trying things on. A lot of them are actually told that this will change their sex. They're actually told that, which I think is psychotic.
And to drill, to maybe pile on to what you were saying about Caitlin, because I've talked to her about this, is what you will hear from people who are properly selected and properly treated is, I have a condition and I have to take dangerous medication the rest of my life, and it's working for me. I would rather not. And Caitlin said something specific to me. He said, but when you're dealing with me, don't even think about it. I'm also left-handed, so just put it in the same category as that, because it's something I just have to live with. And I thought, oh, fine, no problem. And I know a number of people like that were carefully selected, carefully treated, and live. I mean, it's not an issue. It's like not even an object of discussion in their life. It's any more than I take high blood pressure medicine. It's the same kind of thing. But Yvette, I want to go back to this kid. The cold-bloodedness of all of it was what jumped out at me. And my patients don't really have cold-blooded kinds of impulses. When they get psychotic or they get manic or they get addicted, they may do bad things, but they're not that cold-bloodedness. My hair stands up in the back of my neck still when I think about that video. And yet this person didn't continue shooting. They just shoot a couple of times. I thought it was going to be, based on that video, I thought he had potential to do just tremendous damage. What do you think happened there when he just stopped and shot himself? I guess we were led to believe that's what happened.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Obviously, I think anyone who claims to know, is a little maybe psychotic themselves, I guess, as far as being outside of reality. I mean, I certainly don't know. However, I do think it's really important that we study exactly what medications he was on. And I don't even just mean whatever medications were part of this, trans plan, but, maybe there's even something as simple as SSRIs, and maybe there's drug interactions. Yeah. Also, this person obviously did not even feel comfortable discussing with his own medical team that he was not feeling on board with his own plan. So that tells me that he was in a great deal of isolation. It suggests, maybe he was obviously having trouble communicating. And again, it's part of my whole interest in free speech is we know that when people are prone to violence, the first thing we want to do is help them learn to use their words. We want to teach them to speak their mind, no matter what it might be, so that they don't act out in violence. I can't help but wonder on some level if this was, as you said, a really psychopathic form of acting out. I believe that this person's mother at one point was a teacher at that school. I mean, I have no idea, but it could be that he wanted to have been one of those little Catholic school children that just fit in and they had this beautiful life, but he couldn't have it, and he was acting out, very violently by just erasing them and then erasing himself. But I certainly don't know, obviously. All we can do is speculate, but I would really like to understand what was going on with his medical panel as well as with his doctor communications, like you mentioned.
Right. And then that be published so people can, not that he is, I guess it would be reasonable to publish it. And so people can learn from this and adjust their treatment plans. Oh, I get sick when I think about this. It was a chilling thing. And as you were talking, I started thinking to myself, God, we have a problem with violence in this country. And it's not even guns, it's just violence. Is that something you're thinking at all about? And you mentioned psychopathic acting out. So much of the violence is in that kind of zone where it's either impulsive, blackout, red out, white out kind of acting out, or actually some sort of annihilation impulse. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I think that there's a lot of this words are violence talk, or frankly, especially within the trans identity, you have people that say, if you don't respect my pronouns, you're, quote, threatening my existence. And so when we start saying things like words are violence, you are threatening my existence, as I talk about in my book, can I say that? Why free speech matters and how to use it fearlessly. Part of what I'm saying is that if we don't understand that words are actually not violence, and no, speaking up and calling that person trans is not hateful. What he did was hateful, but naming it and discussing it accurately is not hateful. Again, in fact, we need more speech, not less, if we want to avoid violence. I believe a fair amount of the violence that we're having is because people are not communicating, number one, which just tends to facilitate people acting out violently, but combined with the fact that we're telling people that words are violence or silence is violence, or if you don't validate me, then you're threatening my existence. I think on some level, people are acting out violently as what they think is a form of self-defense against words or opinions that they don't like.
That's interesting. I want to pile on your book a little bit, because the book is not just a little how to speak up. It's encyclopedic. It gets into very specific situations and lots of very specific advice for lots of circumstances in which free speech matters.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. And I actually explored the trans issue, quite a lot there. And, I want to say as well, based on what I said earlier, if somebody wants to put on a dress, if a man wants to dress like a woman or a woman wants to dress like a man, I don't consider that to be psychotic. What I consider to be psychotic is when someone starts like literally believing that that's what they are, or if when you want to talk about it with them, that they want to say that you're threatening their existence, or, who was that? Congresswoman, Penny or Peggy, somebody that was wearing the t-shirt that said, protect trans kids at all costs. And it literally had like a bloody knife on it. And this was one of our, lawmakers. So I think words are getting weaponized, but not in the direction that people think. It's actually, I think, more hateful to try to silence speech than it is, whatever is often being called as hate speech is in many cases, just opinions people don't like. And then, what an anxiety-provoking way to live your life too, right? To think that if you say the wrong thing, it's like hitting someone with your car, or if God forbid you hear the wrong thing, it's like someone threatened your existence. Dr. Drew, you and I both know that if a client comes to us and says, I'm thinking of going to physically hurt my neighbor, we have a duty to warn. But if our patient comes to us in confidentiality and says, I'm going to go tell my neighbor something really nasty, then we would be literally breaking the law if we violated that confidence. And so people really need to understand words are not violence. And I think that's actually, ironically, what's leading to some of the violence we see today.
I wonder why there's so much violent rhetoric around this one topic. It's kind of interesting. I really, there's got to be a history there where somebody really massaged that, because it's not a topic that naturally would have to be discussed with violent rhetoric. It just isn't.
Two things. Well, first of all, it's the only group where they say you're threatening my existence. If you don't say or perceive me the way I want you to, you are threatening my existence. Again, we're getting into self-defense territory there. If we take that literally, that basically means you're threatening to kill me. So to answer your question, why do we see so much violence there? These are people who, to use this person's word, brainwashed, may have even been brainwashed to believe that they have to, quote, defend their life at all costs if somebody's not pronouncing them the right way. And then moreover, a lot of them are on a lot of drugs, a lot of, somewhat experimental. I would question the health even of some of these drug protocols. Plus, many of them are on other psychiatric medications as well. And we may not fully understand the way that all of those drugs are cocktailing inside of them.
Yeah, the medication, again, this is part of, there's a bigger topic here in this country where medications are supposed to make life great, life better. Medications are designed, they're risky propositions, often dangerous propositions to address disabling and fatal illness. That's it. And if you have a severe condition where you could harm yourself if we don't treat you with certain medications, okay, it's worth the risk. But they are not making you healthier. That's not the case. It may be creating an alignment that you can be safe with, that is carefully managed, and the risk rewards are constantly assessed and carefully followed up, and asking lots of questions is the point. The doctor needs to be there and follow and check and double check and make sure their treatments are working and not harming the patient. It's not just simply making life better. Medicines are dangerous. All medicine. There's some data that came out today that associated acetaminophen, Tylenol during pregnancy with autism. That makes perfect sense to me. Medicines are dangerous. We take them when the risk is worth it. Well, Chloe, listen, it's always fun to talk to you. What else is on your radar these days?
Well, I'm super excited. I've been doing a lot of speaking around the new book. So if people are interested in, book clubs or anything like that, I'm super excited to just connect with people. Just the more that I talk about free speech and the more that I speak freely, I almost feel like I've come out of the closet or something. And so my whole point about the mental health benefits of free speech is that I believe your brain functions better, your cognitions are clearer, you're more emotionally present. So I've been on a real kick with that, just talking and connecting with people about it. And it's definitely been good for me. So thanks again for giving me the chance to talk about it.
Yeah, it is important. We look at what's going on in Europe right now. It's just hard to believe that it's really the fact that we have these prescriptions in the law give us the opportunity to go forward and defend free speech and to, talk about things that may be uncomfortable, but we have to be able to do it. I think the next interesting topic around free speech will be hate speech, whether it's a real thing or not. I haven't formulated my opinion yet, but I'm hearing people say there should be no hate speech. It's just speech. Speech is speech, and we may not like it. We may feel like it's hateful. Do you have an opinion on that?
Yeah, I do. So I think absolutely we can say hateful things. And in fact, there are things I hate. And I should be able to talk about it, If anybody can say that there's truly nothing that they hate, I mean, I could start naming. Do we hate that this man just went and shot and killed a bunch of Catholic school children while they were praying? I hate that. But interestingly, though, even if we want to get into like the type of hate speech that we would all agree is bad, okay, so one of the things I talk about in my book actually is people that have left the KKK, people that have left being, wrapped up in the Taliban, people that have actually left truly bad, hateful groups. You know why they leave? It's so interesting. Most of them will say that they left because somebody talked to them, somebody listened to them, somebody let them say all the things. In fact, there's a man, I wish I could remember his name. His name is Daryl something. I can't remember his last name, but I talk about him in the book. He's a black jazz artist, and he has a collection of over a dozen KKK hoods that have been handed to him. He made a life's work of sitting as a black man with multiple members of the KKK, listening to them, and through those conversations, changing them. Now, it is not his responsibility to change them. Just like as a woman, it's not my job to go out there and change people who are misogynist. I'm not saying that. But at the same time, we have to understand that there is a healing power in dialogue, and people can say things that are hateful. We can even perhaps certainly hate things, and we should hate them. But the last thing we want to do is tell people not to talk about it, because all that does is make it fester and cause them to act out.
Chloe, thank you so much. Dr. Chloe Carmichael, Dr. Chloe, Dr. Chloe on X, and drchloe.com. And can I say that?
Thank you so much, Dr. Drew. Great to be with you. And freespeechtoday.com is another super easy way to find the book.
Excellent. Thanks so much, Chloe.
Thanks.
And coming up for us, I've got to call in to see if I have jury duty tomorrow. I assume not. Allison Morrow in tomorrow. She's always fun. A Salty Cracker coming in on Thursday. Zach Levi and Batya Ungar Sargon are together in one show. It'll be very interesting. Joe Latipo coming in towards the end of the month. We got a lot coming up. Again, if you want to make any suggestions, contact at drdrew.com. But real estate is at a premium on this show. We have such great guests coming up. Let me quickly look at what you guys are discussing on the Restream and on the rants. A lot of DARPA and Prep Act talk in the Rumble rant room.
Roseanne is coming,
okay.
but we just had to rebook her. So it's most likely probably going to be next week. Roseanne's going to be on the show.
That's what most likely you're saying because she's canceled so many times. She told us 1,000%. 1,000% she'll be here next week.
So I'm hanging on to that. Roseanne, you promised. I'm holding you to it.
We're quoting her right now, live on the air. Susan is in the jury box right now. She got jury duty this week too. I got tagged. I got a call in a few minutes to see if I'm going to try to reschedule it if I'm in for tomorrow. That's ridiculous. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you to our guests as always. I learn my worldview comes into focus over time because of this show. I learned a lot. I hope you're learning a lot too. We'll see you tomorrow at 2:00. Ask Dr. Drew is produced by Caleb Nation and Susan Pinsky. As a reminder, the discussions here are not a substitute for medical care, diagnosis, or treatment. This show is intended for educational and informational purposes only. I am a licensed physician, but I am not a replacement for your personal doctor, and I am not practicing medicine here. Always remember that our understanding of medicine and science is constantly evolving. Though my opinion is based on the information that is available to me today, some of the contents of this show could be outdated in the future. Be sure to check with trusted resources in case any of the information has been updated since this was published. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, don't call me, call 911. If you're feeling hopeless or suicidal, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. You can find more of my recommended organizations and helpful resources at drdrew.com/help.